welcome. We would focus on how organometallic chemistry has benefited the society, because if we can answer this, then we would have an understanding of how important the field is and how this has led to the advancement of the society. And if something which is really beneficial or something which has really been significantly helping the society at large, so that means that this field must have helped the society for a long time. We are going to look at this question from over a century perspective. Right now it's 2021, so that means that we will look at the progress from maybe 1900. We will see how organometallic chemistry has helped the society from 1900 to, let's say, 2021. That's a huge period, about 120 years. And what we would see that there will be a tremendous growth, a tremendous development that was fueled by organometallic chemistry, and that has benefited the society. Now, even before we start looking at various organometallic processes that were developed from 1900 to 2021, and we will look at some of them, some very important ones. As actually there are so many of them that it's very difficult to cover all of them, and what I have decided that I will cover the ones which are important, and also we will cover them on a chronological basis. So, the development will be with respect to time. As the century progressed from 1900 to 2020, the various industrial processes that had emerged from organometallic chemistry also evolved and they developed, and we will take a look as a function of timeline that how did these processes really develop during this period of time. And what we will see that as time progressed, the processes became more and more subtle, more and more intricate, more and more complex, and also could answer by and large very difficult challenges of the society. Now, even before we look at the progress, to support my argument that this is a very interesting field, if we look at the number of Nobel Prizes, that can be taken as a testimony towards the achievement of the field, because Nobel Prize by and large is a recognition given to the field for any development or discovery, invention which is beneficial to the human society, anything that might have benefited the humanity. So, if we count the number of Nobel Prizes, in that way we can get some idea as to how organometallic chemistry fares as compared to other fields in terms of being able to contributing to the society. That will give you a more clearer picture that how many times over organometallic chemistry has been recognized for its contribution to the society. Now, to give you a broader perspective, there are about 9 Nobel Prizes awarded to organometallic chemistry or any field which is related to it in the last 120 years. If you see, what you would find that there have been 9 Nobel Prizes to organometallic chemistry, not just 1 or 2. So, it is not like something that all of a sudden for 1 decade or 2 decades it was really hot field and then died out. No, 9 Nobel Prizes in 120 years means what? Every 10 years the field of organometallic chemistry could succeed in getting a Nobel Prize. Every 10 years, so that means almost about a decade. Every decade or so on an average, the field succeeded in obtaining a Nobel Prize, or field was recognized for its contribution to the society. That's a lot. Not many field win so many times a Nobel Prize as organometallic chemistry did. The only exception may be X-ray crystallography. Crystallography may have several Nobel Prizes from chemistry as well as from biology. I don't have the exact number to come and tell which one is the maximum number, but as far as the organometallic chemistry is concerned, 9 Nobel Prizes in 120 years is really a very big deal. Really a very big deal. This is something that I want you to know. I want you to spend few minutes talking about it. The primary reason being that this has not been looked at from this perspective. Not many people are even aware of the importance of this recognition. Not many people even know the data. So, when we treat this topic of discussing the processes that has emerged out of organometallic chemistry, it would be very much pertinent to look at how many times organometallic chemistry had been recognized for its contribution to the humanity, and that is 9 times over in a period of 120 years. That is a lot. Let us see what these 9 Nobel Prizes were. The first one was in 1912, and the element which made it was magnesium, and magnesium was for Grignard reagent, Victor Grignard. 1912 saw also nickel getting it, so it is a shared half discovery, and this was hydrogenation by Paul Sabatier. And then there was a pause till it is 1963 when Carl Ziegler for titanium and Giulio Natta, and this is mainly for olefin polymerization. After 63, it is 1973. 73 it was iron, and the winner were Ernst Fischer and G. Wilkinson, and these was for sandwich complexes, ferrocene. Now you look at the discoveries. Let us say the first one was CC bond formation. So what is it for? What is the property which is being recognized? What is the attribute? It is application. You can make CC bond. First one is application. Second, nickel also hydrogenation reaction reactivity, it is application. Titanium olefin polymerization, again it is application. Whereas when you look at ferrocene, it is just understanding the bonding in a particular complex. There is no application involved over here. So Nobel Prize was just given for understanding how does a sandwich complex bond the ligand and the metal. That itself was a very radical idea at that point of time, because pi delocalized orbital binding to a metal orbital, at that point it was very unusual and unheard. People were just used to simple concept of sigma bonding and pi bonding, but look at in the ferrocene, there is no per se direct sigma overlap. It is a delocalized pi orbital interacting with these metal orbitals, metal d orbitals, and that complicated bonding at that point of time was very intricate and challenging, to the extent even coming up with a bonding or understanding of the molecule fetched a Nobel Prize. Then we see after 73, again in 1976, this is like sort of the golden era of organometallic chemistry. This time it is boron and William Lipscomb, and it is the structure of boranes, borane structures. Here also there is no application, this is just pure understanding, pure academic knowledge. How borane are formed, how boranes are stabilized, how those fancy complicated structures exist, what are the reasons behind them. Even the elucidation of that fetched a Nobel Prize. Followed by the fifth one, again in a span of another 3 years, 1979, and here also it is boron and phosphorus. Boron portion was done by H. C. Brown, renowned boron chemist, who developed various organoboron reagents, and phosphorus was for G. Wittig for Wittig reaction. So, for the development of organoborane reagents and organophosphorus reagents. And now you see the trend 63, 73, 76, 79, 3 Nobel Prizes in 1 decade. Then comes 81, even after 2 years, 81, and this time it is Fukui and Roald Hoffmann on the theories of chemical reactions. This is not gone to any particular metal, it is theories of chemical reaction, and this was conferred on Kenchi Fukui and Roald Hoffmann. This one again is a Nobel Prize totally on theory, computation or understanding. What we see is that the award or the recognition has not only been given for various applications, but also even for obtaining academic understanding of the molecule. After 81 comes 2001, Noyes and Naori and Sharpless, and the elements over here are rhodium for Noyes, ruthenium for Naori, and titanium for Sharpless. These were given on chiral applications, catalyst for chiral transformations. So, Noel and Nauri was for chiral hydrogenation, asymmetric hydrogenation, and Sharpless for asymmetric oxidation reaction. After 2001, again what we see is that in 2005 it was ruthenium and molybdenum and tungsten getting it. Ruthenium was for the work by Bob Grubbs, molybdenum and tungsten for work by Richard Strock, and in addition there were a French person called Yves Chauvin, and this Nobel Prize was conferred on olefin metathesis, not for Grubbs catalyst. Grubbs is one of the winner. Had it been only for Grubbs catalyst, then molybdenum and tungsten would not figure. Grubbs got one third. So, there were equal contributors or other, and this is the reaction for which it is given is called olefin metathesis. And again in 2010, the metal which won the Nobel Prize is palladium, and the contributors were Richard Heck, Eiichi Negishi, Akira Suzuki, and these are again for metal catalyzed C bond forming reaction. Now, you see the last one is C bond forming, as well as the first one was also C bond forming, but then what is the difference? Why C bond forming got twice? What is the point? Point is this, that if you look at the C bond forming reaction from the chemistry perspective, one is stoichiometric, the other is catalytic. One is very sensitive, extremely sensitive, pyrophoric, sensitive to air and moisture. The other one is catalytic and amenable under ambient conditions. Within this period of 1912 to 2010, period of 100 years, you see how the chemistry has evolved. Chemistry has evolved in one particular area, in the strategy of C bond formation, from being extremely sensitive to air and moisture to something that will explode or require dry solvent, to something being done in a catalytic fashion in air, metal catalyzed fashion. You can see how the reaction evolved, how the challenge was solved, and this challenge both the time, even in 1912 when Grignard made the Grignard reagent for bond forming, it was organometallic chemistry. On the back of organometallic chemistry, how it was developed, and even when 2010 when Suzuki, Negishi, Heck, they did palladium catalyzed bond forming reaction, again it is on the back of organometallic chemistry that they made these discoveries. That is what I want you to know, and that is what I want you to see. And you see in 1970s and 2000, there are 3 Nobel Prizes in each decade. Can you imagine? Every 3 years you get a Nobel Prize. The field must have been really very hot. There would be field who may be lucky to consider getting 1 Nobel Prize, and here we have one a very specialized form of chemistry where 9 in 120 years. Now, if you look at it, also see hydrogenation. 1912 Paul Sabatier, hydrogenation on using nickel, and in 2001 hydrogenation, there it was normal hydrogenation, over here it is asymmetric hydrogenation. So, there is a refinement. Over there it was nickel, over here it is ruthenium, and all has been done using organometallic chemistry. So, that gives you a feel for the scope and the breadth of organometallic chemistry, how broad it is, how it can change itself to meet the challenge of the day, how it can evolve itself with time and deliver you the targets as required by the society. So, what we see again, as far as the let us say Wittig, that is also application. H. C. Brown was mainly for synthesizing organoboron compounds, that is for synthesis, and those organoboron compounds can be used, let us say even Brown's organoboron compound was used by Suzuki in Suzuki coupling. By the way, Suzuki and Negishi, they were postdocs with H. C. Brown. So, if you look at the lineage, so it is the advisor got it, and the postdocs who worked with the advisor, they also got it. In that way, you see boron is the luckiest one, figured 2 times. Titanium, I think olefin metathesis, again Sharpless oxidation reaction. Titanium also figures 2 times. Palladium 1 time. Iron and ruthenium, iron for sandwich compounds and ruthenium for hydrogenation. ruthenium again twice for hydrogenation as well as for olefin metathesis. You can even map these metals in periodic table, and then you will have a feel for which part of the periodic table is noble heavy. So, if you want to take up a research project and you want to win a Nobel Prize, so like you can use this to think about what you are going to be working for or what will be the lucky charm. So, these will give you a feel for how important the field is. Now, please understand this also, that Nobel Prize does not determine everything that is important to a field. No, there may be many discoveries which might have gone unseen by not being recognized as a Nobel Prize. No. So, Nobel Prize cannot be the only criteria to decide what is useful and what is not useful. So, there may be many discoveries as well which might have been extremely good, extremely beneficial, might have benefited the society, but because of reasons unknown did not figure in the Nobel list. That is also possible. So, when we talk about this discussion, we should take it from the perspective that whatever makes it to the Nobel Prize are important and very important, and whatever could not make it, they are also equally important, but for some reason did not get the limelight. Having said that, same thing applies to organometallic chemistry. Organometallic chemistry is not represented by only these 9 Nobel Prizes. There may be another 90 inventions in organometallic chemistry which could have been very well deserving candidate for a Nobel Prize. This is not all of organometallic chemistry. No, this is just a tip of an iceberg. Even in the field of organometallic chemistry, this argument may still hold that there are lot of discoveries even in organometallic chemistry which have not won the Nobel Prize, but they are important. Even in organometallic chemistry, I have given you 9 over here, and we can have another 19 or another 20 or another 30 equally groundbreaking discoveries which have not made up to the list. Through our argument, what we are trying to do is we are building a case for the importance of organometallic chemistry, and how we are going to judge the importance. What has it given to the society? Very direct. See, Grignard, it is a utility, carbon-carbon bond people have to do, and there are many chemical plants also which use Grignard way of making bonds. Olefin polymerization, that is industrial baby. Sandwich complexes, boron or not, then ylides will have some applications. Asymmetric hydrogenation, definitely it is industry oriented process. Olefin metathesis, absolutely application. Even palladium mediated CC bond forming reaction, total application. So, of the 9 that we have shown over here, at least 5 or 6 are from direct application which will have use in industry. Now, if something is discovered in the laboratory, used in the industry, what does that supposed to mean? That means that there is a demand for the mass scale production of that. There is a demand in the society for making a lot of it, for using that synthesis, lot of it. Now, you may argue, what are you going to use it for? What are the applications? Primarily, they are used for making materials or fine chemicals. Some can be used in drugs, some can be used as agrochemicals, some can be used as materials like polymers, like furnitures, films, so on and so forth. So, these are all but practical applications. There is a practical demand, and those have originated in organometallic chemistry laboratory, and they have been discovered by people like you, researcher, first year PhD student, second year PhD student, postdoc, working in the lab in a very small scale. Those discoveries have made it so big now that everybody is pursuing it. It has recognized 9 of his invention in 120 years. How competitive is Nobel Prize? Every field competes. No? One field bagging 9 of the prizes is going to be really difficult, extremely difficult. Now, these is just a story of the successful candidates of organometallic chemistry, but there are also lot of story of organometallic chemistry which have not make up to the big list, but in no way they are inferior, or in no way that their contributions are less, their contributions are insignificant. No, there are many processes that made a significant contribution to the society, and we meet in the next class. Till then, have a good time. Okay, bye.